John.
Glory be to you.
Jesus went to the Mount of Olives. So early in the morning he arrived again in the temple area, and all the people started coming to him. And he sat down and taught them. And the scribes and the Pharisees brought a woman who had been caught in adultery and made her stand in the middle. They said to him, "Teacher, this woman was caught in adultery in the very act of committing adultery. Now in the law, Moses commanded us to stone such women. So what do you say?" They said this to test him, so that they could have some charge to bring against him. Jesus bent down and began to write on the ground with his finger. But when they continued asking him, he straightened up and said to them, "If the one among you who is without sin be the first to throw a stone at her." Again he bent down and wrote on the ground. And in response they went away, one by one, beginning with the elders. So he was left alone with the woman before him. Then Jesus straightened up and said to her, "Woman, where are they? Has no one condemned you?" She replied, "No one, sir. Neither do I condemn you. Go, and from now on, do not sin anymore." The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
There's another way to tell that story. Jesus is in the streets and they bring the woman before him. They cry, "What do we do, Jesus? She's been caught in the act of adultery." He traces on the ground. He says, "No, what are we supposed to do?" And he says, "Let the one who is without sin cast the first stone." And from the back of the crowd comes this huge boulder and smash right on top of the girl. And Jesus looks up and says, "Oh, Mom." My mom was sitting there. She made me promise not to say that it was from her. The joke didn't come from her. Although I sometimes think she is without sin. Today's parade day. It's really the first full day of spring. It's a great time of the year. And spring ushers in summer on the horizon and Easter just around the corner. And we have to, I'm just filled with thinking of all the new things. The crocuses are blooming and the church year is coming to that beautiful moment of passion and resurrection. And I think our readings speak to that newness, the call to new life that God calls us time and time again to. Isaiah recounts it in a very global fashion, in such a powerful way for the people of Israel. First, looking back at the ways of Moses and the chariots being clogged down in the Red Sea and the great events of their salvation, that first Passover. But then saying, even that's nothing to look at compared to what's about to come. Isaiah is speaking to the people in exile in Babylon, and he's saying, new things are going to happen for you. You're going to be restored as a nation. Israel will come back home. Indeed, the nation of Israel, the people of Israel, knew that newness, lived that restoration from exile to the chosen people of God. But on a personal level, I think the gospel brings that newness home. There's no two ways about it. If you look at the gospel, it's a movement from imminent death to a true encounter with the mercy of God. This is seen most easily through the woman's perspective. Here she is, literally caught with her pants down. And she knows the law. It could be the end. She's going right before, really, the judgment seat of the elders of Israel. Or take a look at the crowd. They start with this blood in their eyes, rocks in their hands. The scribes and Pharisees are whipping them up. Here we can track Jesus with condemnation and the law of Moses. And Jesus traces on the ground, sort of like putting them all in a little time out. Take a step back from this violence, this judgment. Take a step back from the anger. Take a step back and see mercy in your midst. Let the one among you without sin be the first to throw a stone at him. It's Lent, and I've heard, literally hundreds and hundreds of confessions these last weeks, penance services at schools and at local parishes, even our own parish last week. We had a beautiful penance service. Sit in the confessional, and person after person comes through. And you can see in their eyes, the eyes of that crowd, you can see, judgment wants to burst forth. But when they look into the eyes of Jesus, they walk away from confession, knowing mercy. Ask to put down the stones of judgment and recrimination. Put away anger or bitterness or jealousy. Put away the things that take us to those places we shouldn't go. And pray that we don't take those stones back up again. I often see her eyes in the eyes of the penitent, wondering what's going to come next. Is this the end? Will somebody say, you're a sinner? But she looks, she sees Jesus. From that moment of condemnation to that moment of true freedom as a daughter of God. Jesus never condemns her. Where are your judgments? Where are the people? If they're not going to condemn you, Jesus says, neither do I. But he condemns the sin as he sends her forth and says, but sin no more. Put aside that old way of life and step into the newness of mercy and love, of grace and wholeness. I think Paul experienced that so wonderfully. St. Paul, you think about his life. He who went around Israel murdering Christians, putting them to death in the name of his faith. And Jesus knocks him off his horse and says, step into the light. Come into this newness. And Paul, late in life, now writing to the Philippians, recounts how he puts aside all those old things that he did as nothing, striving ever for the goal, forgetting what lies behind, but straining forward to what lies ahead, the goal, the prize of God's upward call, Jesus Christ. We have 2 short weeks of Lent left. And one of those weeks is our Passion Week, which starts next week at Palm Sunday. This is the time to renew our discipline of charity and works of mercy, of setting aside the things that will take us away from the love of God, of renewing our prayer with fervency and devotion, so that we can receive the new life of Christ.
Give us your peace, oh God. Give us your peace, your peace. Give us your peace, oh God. Give us your peace.